The scent of sage clung in the air as Saguache County police officers entered the Moffat, Colorado home of Miguel Lamboy on April 28, 2021. It didn't take them long to discover what they had been called in for. Miguel, a quiet and serene background member of the group Love Has Won, had gone into the Salida County Police Department to report the mummified corpse of a woman in his back room. Mother God. When he confronted members of the religious group that he'd been allowing to live there on and off for several years, one of the members had snatched his 2-year-old son and refused to give him back to Miguel. When police entered the back bedroom, they discovered a room decorated in stars and hearts, with teddy bears perched above the bed of a mummified corpse in a sleeping bag, wrapped in Christmas lights. And I'm sorry for this, empty eye sockets had glitter makeup smeared around them. Her teeth were showing through her lips. Mother God had shed her physical vessel, but has love won? Welcome to Margs and Mayhem, where I tell you a true crime story and we drink. The following content may be disturbing to some. Discretion is advised. If you choose to enjoy one of our themed margaritas, make sure you are of legal drinking age and have fun, but drink responsibly. Gosh, how lucky are you? 2 colts in 2 months. I stumbled upon this particular group and I cannot express to you how thoroughly and absolutely captivated I am by this entire story. You're going to need maybe 2 drinks to make it through today, so head out to McDonald's and grab a slushie. You choose what flavor. I was originally going to go with pink lemonade, but they didn't have it, of course. You know how McDonald's is. So I went with a blue raspberry slushie instead, and I do not regret it. All right, head to McDonald's. Go on, pause. I'll wait. Okay, now that you're back, a blended margarita for today. So you're going to take 1 part of your slushie. I bought a large and used about half of it. So you could probably do a regular sized slushie, or, if you wanted to get blue raspberry lemonade or something, that would work in a pinch. But I think for the sake of the story, the McDonald's is what you need. You're going to add that. I actually went ahead and froze that for a little bit longer this afternoon. Their slushies are kind of watery, so I froze it so that I wouldn't have to use any extra ice, but you could use extra ice if you wanted. And then I put that into the blender, as well as 2 parts tequila and 1 part triple sec. Today I decided not to use the shot glass, and instead I just counted. So I decided the count I wanted to do and just doubled it for 1 part triple sec, and then doubled it for the tequila. I shall quote from one of Amy Carlson, Mother God's, eventual followers about Amy as we blend. Quote, "The cabal was not expecting her to come in through McDonald's. They weren't expecting her to implement I'm loving it. And literally, she flipped it to love. She flipped those burgers to represent love. Well, I'm not sure about any of that, but as for this margarita, you guessed it. I'm loving it." Amy Carlson was born in 1975 in a small town outside of Wichita, Kansas. Listen, I had no idea there was a Kansas connection before I picked this case. I swear these Kansas cases, they're finding me. I promise. Anyway, she was raised with 1 sister, and both her sister and her mother described her as very sweet and a good student. There's a picture of her floating around on the internet where she definitely has the 80s teased hair, very big and blonde. She also had a beautiful singing voice. She was raised by her mother and her father, and then when they divorced and each got remarried, she split her time for a while between Oklahoma City and Kansas. She had, by several accounts, a somewhat difficult relationship with her stepmother. Eventually, she would move with her mother and her sister to Dallas and then to Houston. By the time she was in her early 20s, Amy had given birth to a son and 2 daughters, all with different fathers. I'm not shaming, I'm just stating those are the facts. Her mother would say that she was not very maternal. She didn't have much problem really just leaving her kids with family members whenever she wanted to. That didn't really it didn't seem to be her focus even before all of these things started. They did say that she seemed to be neglectful of her children before she left. She worked as a manager for McDonald's in Houston, so that's where we get the McDonald's and the flippin' burgers for love that happens later. Starting in her early adulthood, Amy began striking up friendships with some New Age spiritualists, primarily through the internet. But then she would start to disappear for long periods of time. And when she would come back, she would be talking about strange things, spaceships, that kind of a thing. Her family did think it was strange, but she would always come home. At one point in 2006, she starts to act strange too and starts to call herself Mother God. To the surprise of her family, she just cuts herself off from them, leaves them totally, leaves her kids with family members, and totally disappears right around 2006. Before we continue with our timeline, which does start in 2006 but doesn't really pick up until 2014, I do want to talk about the doctrine, the belief system of this group that she forms, Love Has Won. The doctrine of Love Has Won, as typically happens with cults, was pretty contradicting a lot of the time. Mother God claims that she has been around for 19 billion years trying to save humanity. That's a little interesting because humanity has only existed at the outset for 300,000 years, so not sure who she was trying to save for the other 18.9 billion years. And actually, scientists believe that the Big Bang happened about 13.8 billion years ago. So Mother God and her desire to save humanity predates the universe. I mean, I don't know if it makes sense. Maybe it makes sense. Her followers all refer to her as Mom or Mama. Mother God decided that free will was really the thing that corrupted modern day Earth, and so it was her mission to remove free will from the human race. That's a recipe for a challenge. Ugh. She claimed to have remembered at least 534 lifetimes, including Joan of Arc, Marilyn Monroe, and Jesus Christ himself. In her current lifetime, her father was Donald Trump. You can't make this stuff up, I swear. Oh, and she's in a close spiritual relationship with Robin Williams. Anyway, in this current time, they are in a constant battle. Love Has Won is in a constant battle with this shadowy group known as the Cabal, tied to, you guessed it, the Illuminati. And they engineer all the bad things that are happening in the world. I'm not even going to get into the lizard people because, yes, there are lizard people. And I am definitely not going to talk about QAnon because QAnon's also involved. Amy claimed that she could remove tumors, fix kidney issues, and cure anything that you were being ailed with. In order to do that, you had to believe with your whole being that Mother God was Mother God. And you had to give some money, sometimes to the tune of $100,000 or more, to the Love Has Won group. The group also sold a variety of healing products on their website. Yes, this is a modern cult, including several products that contained colloidal silver, a supplement that they claimed had lots of healing properties, including healing properties for COVID-19. In fact, the FDA actually warned the group against making these unfounded claims that colloidal silver could actually cure COVID-19. It can't, but what it can do is pretty awful. In general, colloidal silver has absolutely no proven health benefits, and chronic overdose of silver can produce some really horrible, irreversible side effects, including seizures and kidney failure. In an image released of Amy just before her death, you actually can see that her skin appears gray-blue and almost purple. And this is due to silver poisoning. In fact, there's a term for it. It's called argyria, and it happens when there is a buildup of silver inside the body. It turns your skin, especially in areas that are exposed to sunlight, purple. Seems like her and her group were ingesting massive amounts of colloidal silver, and Amy herself specifically was poisoning herself. Amy, as Mother God, promised to lead the 144,000 chosen ones to the next realm, which they called the fifth dimension. Some of you probably recognize that number, 144,000, as chosen ones in several other religions, including Jehovah's Witnesses and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as the chosen ones who will be taken to heaven. This number is found in Revelations, and so is used by a number of religious groups and I guess spiritual groups like Love Has Won. Anyway, the basic and pretty much only step of being one of those 144,000 chosen in Love Has Won was to give money. Mother God claimed that within her many 534 whatever lifetimes, she had also been reunited with Father God. And in this lifetime, she'd been reunited with several Father Gods. Really, what I think Father God amounted to was anyone she was dating at the time, but I digress. The final Father God, Jason Castillo, joined the group in 2018. Jason, a Wisconsinite, had found the Love Has Won group on a website. He actually had what they called a 3D family, which is a family in the real world, marriage, 20 years and children, and he just packed up and left all of that to join Amy, Mother God, and the Love Has Won cult. In an interview he would do with Rolling Stone in 2018, he would really lean into this idea of being, well, Father God. He had this to say, quote, "I'd sit on the stairs and look at this picture of Jesus. There was a beautiful cracked gilded glass above the lamp in the hallway and this auburn glow. I would sit there and just stare at Jesus, who was myself." Okay, Mother God was Jesus. Father God was also Jesus. I don't know. It's really confusing. Okay? A lot of strange doctrine. Starting in 2018, when he joined the group, Jason was featured in many of the group's live streams. What? Live streams? Yes, I told you, this is a modern cult, and they got it all. They had a Facebook page, they had a YouTube, they were peddling their wares just like I am every week on Margs and Mayhem, and they streamed a lot, twice a day for several hours at a time. Somebody referred to it as it feeling sort of like a real world, you know, like on MTV, sort of a vibe to it. And I have seen some of the videos, and they do seem to be having a pretty good time a lot of the times. Mother God and her followers spread their beliefs in perpetuity across the internet for everyone to see. But not just their beliefs. Mother God recorded a lot of videos herself, a lot of cell phone video footage that was put onto their YouTube channel. A lot of these videos showing her doing some honestly pretty terrible things. She locked a child in a closet for timeout. She is videoed physically and verbally abusing her cat. And there is also this video that it's just about the wildest thing I've ever seen for a group proclaiming to be full of love. Picture a very inebriated Amy holding the camera. She's obviously laying in a bed and you can see her leg, like her leg is exposed. She is filming a very uncomfortable, a visibly uncomfortable follower who doesn't really talk in the video at all. I'm just gonna quote what the video is saying, or what she's saying in the video, but please just picture this at like 100 times the volume and she's yelling. All right, here we go. Quote, "My vision was chicken parmesan. So the effing," she did not say effing, by the way, "Adams turn around on me and get me meatballs. I didn't say meatballs. I love meatballs, but I didn't effing say that. Mother effing chicken parmesan." She goes on to call all of her followers whores and demands that they bring her tequila. She waves her cigarette at the uncomfortable follower and tells him to take his half-assed God and shove it, well, you know. Yeah, I mean, for Mom, she doesn't really seem that maternal. I mean, they're all calling her Mom, but she does not really seem like a good mom. For the record, Amy would later say that those clips were posted out of context, but I mean, they posted the whole video, so I don't really know what context she is expecting people to understand. I don't know. Other videos of the group show them making terribly racist and anti-Semitic comments. Problematic. Mother God, Amy, never left her room. She consumed beer all day and liquor all night. In fact, some of her followers believed in her because she was able to consume so much alcohol and not die. That was one of the reasons that they thought that she was Mother God. She demanded her followers buy her gifts and give her things. Those that were living near to her had their sleep restricted to no more than 4 to 5 hours a night. They also had their food restricted. They were forced to be in perpetual motion, no sitting. Anytime they were sitting, that was taking energy away from Mother God. All group members must remain celibate, unless your name is Mother God. Group members would play a game called Find the Whore, where they would try to find someone in the group that wasn't following the expectations the way that they wanted, sometimes reducing those members to tears. On camera, people who did not bow to Amy's complete will, her divine will, were often abandoned and sent out into the Colorado desert, delirious for lack of food and lack of sleep. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend this cult. Mother God amassed somewhere between 12 and 20 followers, starting in about 2014. Her first true member was the one and only Miguel Lamboy, who was at the time 35, the one who is from the beginning of our story. And he was convinced when he'd actually been suffering from end-stage lung cancer, and he even only had one lung left. He managed to still be alive, so he believed that Mother God had performed a miracle on him. He would actually be instrumental in getting them their 501c3 status. A real church. I mean, say that to Scientology. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to say anything about Scientology. Leah Remini's, she's pretty much got that one in the bag, so you should check out that documentary. Most of their growth was due to their online presence. They actually amassed 100 to 200 members who were pretty religious, I guess you can say, in following them online. And there were groups meeting, satellite groups meeting outside of the main group around Mother God in several countries, Australia, South Africa. These people that were connected online, auxiliary members, so to speak, they were known as ambassadors. Love Has Won was mostly nomadic, traveling between Oregon, Florida, and California before settling for a while and bunking up with Miguel in Moffat, Colorado. In August of 2020, the group actually moved to a Hawaiian island, Kauai, but their stay there was very short-lived, probably in part because Amy decided to say that she was actually Pele, which is a very important goddess in indigenous Hawaiian culture, and the Hawaiians were not so happy about that. They also really just didn't follow COVID protocols. They were very unsafe, and the people super duper duper protested. The Kauai mayor, he really arranged their departure, and they headed back stateside less than a month later. In September of 2020, Amy and her followers began to discuss online and in the live streams Amy's poor health. At that point, Amy was claiming to be paralyzed and needed to be carried everywhere that she went. She would announce in her first and only television appearance on the Dr. Phil show in September of 2020 that she had stage 5 cancer, which is not an actual thing. But photographs of her that were shown at the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021 really do show a decline in health. As I mentioned before, she does have that color of her skin that is super unnatural. She was also severely underweight, very, very, very thin. She looks like a skeleton, a very just shell of her former happy, teased 80s hair self. It's alleged that Amy at times did ask the group to give her medical intervention, but they declined her, thinking that the cabal would attack her if they took her to the hospital. By the spring of 2021, her health had deteriorated to the point where she was either unconscious or already dead. April 10th, 2021 is the last known sighting of Amy alive outside of group members. On an April 16th live stream, a member said, quote, "Mom is not good. She is very, very close, and that's pretty much all we know. She is slowly pulling out of her vessel," end quote. That prompted her very worried family to request a wellness check. Evidently, they did go to the house, but an ambulance that was sent there for Amy was turned away. The next morning, other members of the group seemed to indicate that Amy had died or left her vessel. Although no one in the group seems to be interested in telling officials the truth, the probability is pretty high that she actually died in an RV park on April 27th or around April 27th, 2021, and then her body was moved in the back of an SUV with the seats folded down. When the police arrived at the house and found the mummified body of a woman in a sleeping bag wrapped in Christmas lights, in case you forgot, which I'm sure you didn't, they seemed pretty surprised at how calm the residents of the house were to be in the same house as a dead body. Which, I guess if you believe that the body is just a vessel, who cares, right? I don't know. Not my belief system. 7 adults that were in the house were arrested, including Jason, Father God himself, and were given a variety of charges, including abuse of a corpse and child endangerment, child abuse, because not only was that 2-year-old son of Miguel's in the house, there was also a 13-year-old girl, which I presume was a daughter of one or two of the group members, because she was, at least for a while, placed in Child Protective Services custody. Okay. You know what we gotta do here? We gotta do our famous cult test. For the record, Amy and the other group members do not believe that this was a cult. Of course they don't. That's like the main feature of a cult. Why would you be in a cult if you thought it was a cult? Duh, obviously. That's kind of the point of a cult. However, this episode, more than any other, really got me thinking about the differences between an early religion and a cult. Remember, a lot of early religions, including Christianity, had this sort of distinction of being seen as a cult when they first started, and we have to be careful and tread lightly in these situations because, it could be just a religion in some cases that's new and founding. You can't just call something a cult because you disagree with it. It has to have some actual characteristics in order to be called that. Now, you'll notice that, spoiler, I did call it a cult throughout the episode, so, I'm going to tell you why I think it is, but I do believe that this passes the cult test. There is a lot of evidence to indicate that Love Has Won was not healthy for its members. And so we are going to use the characteristics that we've used before, which were developed by Harvard professor Robert J. Lifton, what I'm going to call the destructive cult test. And he uses 3 characteristics to define that. And this group has left just a body of evidence for us to explore. Hours and hours and hours and hours of footage, websites, Facebook pages for us to see and to see if this group passes or fails. I don't know. The destructive cult test. First, they are led by a charismatic leader who demands absolute power and absolute authority. Well, I think we've got this in Mother God, and I gotta say, this does seem to be the easiest characteristic for us to really observe in most cults, is this idea of a charismatic leader. It seems like obviously that's how this starts. So despite her destructive, never-ending, terrible bad habits and just absolutely toxic way, she did manage to gather these people together who were super devoted to her cause. They were willing to stand there and be filmed being abused about chicken parmesan. It's pretty obvious that she had some kind of grip on her group, and I guess she was pretty charismatic. Not very sophisticated and often drunk, but charismatic nonetheless. Second, the group has to have some sort of indoctrination program, and we often call this thought reform, mind control, that kind of a thing. So in this case, that's all over the internet. First of all, Mother God said there was only divine will, not free will, and divine will was her will, and she is a person, well, she's Mother God. But you have to do everything she says without question. If you don't, you're going to be called a whore. There's going to be a test. You're going to be sent out into the desert to die. I mean, whew, the amount of cognitive dissonance that members of this group had to experience in order to be able to stay in this group and to continue being a part of this group just indicates to me there's just this level of thought control, mind control, indoctrination. And there are two of Mother God's followers who are actually on that Dr. Phil episode, interviewed for long periods of time, and you can see Dr. Phil really pushing them on these things that cause cognitive dissonance, and they just straight throw it away and ignore everything that he's saying. That's their defense mechanism. It's pretty wild. Lastly, there has to be some sort of exploitation of the members. When I first started doing research, I thought this is going to be the hardest one to find. But let's be honest. If to be a chosen one, all you have to do is give money, that's pretty clear indication of the group's motives, and I don't think that it's love. Secondly, I mean, you can see in the videos the amount of just straight abuse that these members are facing. Just straight verbal abuse, almost nonstop. They're being exploited and taken advantage of. In my mind, there's no question. So what do you think? In my opinion, and in the mind of several experts, Love Has Won does pass the destructive cult test. Does it pass yours? And as I am consistently fascinated with, I wish I could get inside the brain of the charismatic leader. Do you think that Amy really believed the things she was espousing over and over and over again? Or did she know she was pulling the wool over the eyes of her followers the entire time? Do these leaders really believe the garbage that they're spewing? I don't know. What do you think? And what led Amy to do this? Did she have some mental health issues burned from her childhood? What about all that rampant alcohol abuse, not to mention literally poisoning herself with silver? What about Father God? What's his role in all of this? How do you leave your entire family and a wife of 20 years behind in order to join a cult? How does that happen? And what about you? Are there vulnerable moments in your life that you've maybe could see yourself being swept into something that gets you in so deep that you can't dig out of it? How close are all of us to being swept into a cult? In September of 2021, all charges against Love Has Won cult members were officially dropped, although the reason wasn't made public. The autopsy and toxicology report took months and longer than normal because that department had to reach out to a larger county in Colorado for help with testing for heavy metals. The autopsy revealed that Amy Carlson died of natural causes. Alcohol abuse, combined with anorexia and the chronic consumption of colloidal silver, caused her death. At the time of her death, she was 4'11" and weighed 75 pounds. There was no evidence of her being paralyzed or of her having cancer. Since the death of Amy Carlson, the Love Has Won group has disbanded and gone their separate ways. Or have they? All of their videos can still be found, transferred over to their new YouTube platform, 5D Full Disclosure, where they last released a video on November 6th to their almost 10,000 subscribers. This video has about 5,000 views, but take it from me, it doesn't need another one from you. They have a Facebook presence and a podcast. Their website declares, quote, "God was here. She ascended. It's our turn." You can shop in their store and buy a variety of home healing objects, including resin coasters. You just missed their Valentine's sale where their whole shop was 25% off. It looks like they gave up on the colloidal silver though, thank goodness. And from their more recent videos, things do seem to be a little bit more relaxed. People seem to be having a better time, and it doesn't appear that they have an overarching leader. Father God, Jason Castillo, formed a separate splinter group called Joy Reigns. He claims to be the Mother-Father God, or, quote, physical conductor to anchor in Mom's divine plan, end quote. The latest blog entry was posted at the end of January of this year, which shows that the group is active. There is one video testimony from an unnamed woman on the website, and the website is full of pictures of Amy Carlson, Mother God, including the featured photograph, which shows her seated next to Jason, eyes to the sky, holding a shot of tequila. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you're searching for something in life, as it seems almost all of us are, I hope you find something that gives you more than sleep deprivation, lack of food, and a fear of chicken parmesan. I really want to know what you think about this episode, cult episodes in general, and resin coasters. Head on over to YouTube and drop a comment. Let's keep the conversation going. And you know the drill. Head to all of our socials and follow along. Twitter could really use a pity follow if you have a Twitter. Next week, we go to the unsolved and the high probability that a crime that was committed twice didn't really have to be committed twice. Okay, it really didn't need to be committed at all. More on that later. And because we're headed to the bayous of Houston, we're going to do a margarita with a different kind of fruit, a satsuma. You're gonna need a syrup for this one, and I found it on Amazon, so I posted the link below. I'll see you next week, and remember, there are always alternatives to murder, and poisoning yourself to death with natural substances like colloidal silver and alcohol, and bringing others down in your self-destruction.